Part 1. The Disappearance. South Carolina, August 2006. Chesterfield County was the kind of place where the days moved slow, and the sky always seemed too wide. Forests pressed against long stretches of highway. There were more pine trees than people. In the summer, the air was thick, humid, heavy, like it was holding something in. The locals called it peaceful. But to a restless teenager like Elizabeth Shoaf, it sometimes felt like a trap. Elizabeth was 14, thin, sharp-eyed, with freckles across her nose and a walk that made people turn and look twice. Not because she tried, she didn't care much for makeup or style, but because she had that kind of quiet presence that demanded attention. She was smart. Too smart sometimes, her mother would say. Observant. The kind of girl who didn't speak unless she had something to say. She had her routine. Wake up, bus to school, classes, where she blended in just enough to not attract the wrong attention. Lunch with her one close friend, Rachel, then home, homework, dinner, sleep. It was a life measured in small rhythms, until the day it stopped. The last day anyone saw her was Wednesday, August 30th. Elizabeth had stayed a bit after school, not for anything big, just helping Mrs. Carter with yearbook layouts. She was walking home through a wooded shortcut, something she'd done a dozen times before. The trees gave some shade, her backpack was heavy, she was texting Rachel about a history test. Then, she saw him. He wore a uniform, tan shirt, badge on his chest, gun holstered at his hip. "Are you Elizabeth Shoaf?" the man asked. She stopped, confused. "Yes?" "I'm with the sheriff's department. There was a report about drug activity in the area. I need to ask you a few questions." She hesitated. Something felt off. His voice was steady, but cold, flat. He showed a badge. She didn't have time to look closely. "Can I call my mom?" she asked. "You can call her at the station. Come with me." She never came home. That night, the Shoafs knew something was wrong. It wasn't like Elizabeth to disappear. She was responsible, grounded, not the kind of kid to run off. By 7 p.m., her mother Madeline was calling everyone, friends, teachers, even the school janitor. At 8:15, she called the police. At first, the response was lukewarm. Maybe she ran away. Maybe it was just teenage drama. But Madeline insisted, "My daughter doesn't run away. Something happened." By midnight, local volunteers were forming search parties, flashlights and boots in the forest. They called, they shouted her name, they checked ditches, creeks, gas stations, no trace, not even a dropped phone. Somewhere beneath their feet, Elizabeth lay in the dark. The first thing she noticed was the silence. Then, the damp. She was lying on a thin mat. The space around her was cramped. The ceiling was just above her head, dirt and wood. The walls were plastic. It smelled like mold and sweat. She sat up too fast. Her head hit something, and then she heard his voice. "You're awake." He stood at the edge of the narrow space, tall, thin, eyes like glass. "You're underground," he said. "Don't scream. No one can hear you anyway." Elizabeth didn't scream. She stared. He smiled. "I'm the only one who knows where you are. You're safe, as long as you behave." Above ground, the world was already moving against him. Police had little to go on, no surveillance, no witnesses, but one detail. A friend said Elizabeth had mentioned something strange the day before, that she saw a man in uniform near the woods, a fake cop maybe. The sheriff's department was furious. "No one from our team was in that area," they said. A fake badge, an impersonator. That changed everything. Now it was a possible abduction. The FBI was called in. Dogs, helicopters, news crews. Elizabeth's face was on every TV, but none of them knew. She was just 10 feet beneath their boots. Inside the bunker, time lost its shape. There were no windows, just one dim light from a battery. She slept when she was exhausted, ate when he brought food. He gave her peanut butter sandwiches, bottled water, a bucket for waste. No explanation, no kindness. His name was Vincent Phelan. She would later learn more, but for now all she knew was his voice and the shape of his shadow. He talked to her, sometimes for hours, about conspiracies, government tracking devices, how the world was against people like him. He called himself a freedom fighter, a revolutionary. Elizabeth listened. She didn't cry, not often, not in front of him, because deep down, she already understood. If she showed weakness, he'd win, so she watched and waited. On the surface, rumors were growing. Maybe she ran off with a boy. Maybe she was hiding something. Maybe it's drugs. People always want to explain away the horror. Her family refused to give in. They printed flyers. Madeline gave interviews. "My daughter was taken," she repeated again and again. "I know it. I feel it." The police, now under pressure, shifted gears. A $20,000 reward was offered, and a new tip came in. Someone had seen a man walking with a girl in the woods that afternoon. She looked scared. He looked calm. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep hope alive. The underground, hope was a fragile thread. On day 4, he let her out, just for a moment. A short breath of air, tall trees, the sky like a painting, but only with a chain around her ankle. She didn't run, not yet. She looked at the trees and breathed, and memorized where the sun was, the direction of the wind, the distance to the edge of the tree line. He dragged her back inside after 5 minutes, but she smiled when he wasn't looking. She had seen the way out. At day 6, he gave her a notebook. "Write something," he said. "Like what?" "Whatever you want, just don't write lies." So she wrote about her dog, about her brother, about how she wanted to be a veterinarian. She also wrote one sentence in tiny handwriting on the back page. "This man kidnapped me. My name is Elizabeth Shoaf. Help me." Then she tore it out when he left to get food, folded it, hid it in her sock. That night she slept with it pressed against her skin, just in case. Day 7. She asked him about his phone. He was bragging, that he fooled everyone, that the police were stupid. She laughed lightly. "Yeah, you're like invisible." That made him smile. She leaned forward. "Do you ever check the news? I bet they're talking about me." He hesitated, then handed her the phone. "Just 1 minute. No funny stuff." She opened it. No password. Signal, 1 bar, no time to call. No time to text anyone directly. But she opened the SMS app and typed 3 words, "I'm Elizabeth Shoaf," then pressed "Send" to the last number in the log. She didn't know who it was. She prayed. Upstairs, in a sheriff's office, a phone buzzed. Detective Walker had no idea who Elizabeth Shoaf was at first. The message was anonymous, but he Googled the name. His blood froze. He called it in. And that changed everything. Part 2. Underground. Darkness had a shape in the bunker. It crept in the corners, sat behind the sound of dripping condensation, crawled through the spaces between breaths. Elizabeth counted the seconds between each sound, the buzzing from the old battery light, the faint metallic rattle from the chain around her ankle, the rhythm of her heartbeat, fast, slow, then fast again. 10 feet underground, time had no meaning. But terror, it filled every second. Vincent was always watching her. Even when he pretended not to, she felt it. When she turned her back, when she closed her eyes, when she tried to sleep. His presence pressed against her like the walls. He had moods. Sometimes he was calm. He would sit cross-legged across the space, talk about politics, conspiracies, the system. He called the police pigs. Said he used to work with them, but they betrayed him. "They'll never find you here," he said. "You're mine now." Other times, he would snap, slam his hand against the plywood ceiling, scream, curse imaginary voices, punch the dirt wall, then go silent. Elizabeth stayed still during those moments, breath shallow, eyes down, waiting. On the morning of day 8, he brought a radio. He turned the dial slowly, listening to white noise, until he found the local news. They were still talking about her. A Chesterfield County teen missing for over a week. 14-year-old Elizabeth Shoaf disappeared while walking home. She listened. It was surreal, like hearing your own obituary. Vincent watched her face. "You hear that?" he said. "They think you're dead." She said nothing, but inside, a flame sparked. They hadn't stopped looking. She began to study him, how he walked, how he opened the hatch, what he carried, when he left, how long he was gone. She kept a mental journal. Morning routine, enters at 8 a.m. with water. Afternoon, silence, probably above ground. Food arrives at sunset, cold beans, dry bread. Always locks hatch from outside. She timed his absences, some were short, others, hours. Once he didn't come back until midnight. She lay in the dark, heart pounding, wondering if he left for good, wondering if she would die in that box, alone. But then the hatch creaked, his boots thudded on the ladder. He was back, and drunk. "Dance," he said. Elizabeth blinked. "What? Dance? I want to see you dance." She shook her head. "I don't know how." He stepped closer. "I said dance." She stood slowly. Her legs shook. She raised her arms, awkward, robotic, and swayed side to side. Vincent stared at her, then burst out laughing. "You look like a damn zombie," he said. She sat down quickly. He kept laughing. That night, she didn't sleep. She stared at the light bulb until her eyes burned. He was cracking, and that made him dangerous. On day 10, she made a decision. She would stop being his prisoner. She would become his audience. She began to ask questions. "How did you build this place? Have you lived here long? What happened to you?" At first, he was suspicious, but then he opened up. He told her about his childhood, a father who hit, a mother who vanished, schools that expelled him, jobs that fired him. He said the world was unfair, that he was smarter than all of them. "I built this place myself," he said proudly. "Took me 2 years. No one knows it exists." "You're really smart," she said softly. He smiled. That was the first time he gave her extra food. She was gaining ground. Small things. He started calling her Liz. He let her walk outside for longer, still chained but under open sky. She used that time to memorize the terrain, the sound of the birds, the angle of the sun. And one day, when he left the bunker door cracked just a little too wide, she saw his phone on top of his backpack. He was outside, peeing near the trees. Her heart raced. Now or never. She crawled silently across the dirt, reached up, grabbed the phone. 1 bar of signal. She typed fast. "This is Liz Shoaf. I'm alive. In the woods. Please help." She hit send, then returned the phone to its place. Vincent never noticed. Above ground, the message hit the sheriff's inbox. The number matched the one used days earlier. Only this time, she'd added more. "Wooden bunker, near the creek, behind 2 oak trees." It wasn't much, but it was enough. They began triangulating the signal, checking maps, sending plainclothes officers into the area. It would take time, but the hunt had truly begun. Underground, Liz kept playing the role. She laughed at his jokes. She asked him what he'd do after the revolution. She complimented his engineering skills. She even asked, "What would you do if I escaped?" He looked at her, serious. "Then I'd have to kill you." She nodded slowly. "Then I won't." But in her mind, she repeated, "I will, I will, I will." On day 13, he brought her a red hoodie. "Put this on," he said. "Why?" "We're going on a trip." Her blood ran cold. He had changed. His face looked darker, like he hadn't slept. He packed a bag, water, flashlight, rope, shovel. She followed, chained. They walked deep into the woods, farther than ever before. Every instinct screamed, "This is it. He's going to kill you." But he just stopped, and sat, and cried. She had never seen him cry. "I can't do this," he muttered. "I messed it all up." She sat beside him, quiet. Inside, her mind raced. Now, this is the moment. Suddenly, branches snapped. Voices. "Sheriff's Department! Hands up!" Vincent froze. She screamed, "I'm here! I'm Elizabeth Shoaf!" Chaos. Officers in camouflage. Guns drawn. Dogs barking. Radios chirping. Vincent didn't run. He dropped to his knees. One of the deputies pulled her behind him. "You're safe now," he said. She collapsed in his arms. And of 13 days. That's how long she had been underground. 13 days of cold, filth, fear, calculation. And now, the sun was blinding, the trees too green, the world too loud. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I'm still here." Part 3. The Mind Game. The headlines spread like wildfire. 14-year-old rescued after 10 days underground. "I'm still here. Elizabeth Shoaf's brave escape." Fake cop held girl in bunker. CNN, Fox, local TV, national news, morning shows, blogs. Everyone had a version, but only Elizabeth knew the truth. The first night back home was the hardest. She expected to feel safe, but the silence of her bedroom was worse than the bunker. No creaking hatch, no buzzing battery, no rustling above, just stillness. She lay in her bed, fully clothed, lights on, door open. Every sound made her flinch. Her mother slept in a chair next to her, holding her hand. Meanwhile, Vincent Fillen sat in an interrogation room, hands cuffed, eyes empty. He didn't ask for a lawyer, didn't speak for hours. Then suddenly, she wanted to be there. Detective Morris raised an eyebrow. "She said she liked me," Vincent muttered. "We talked. She understood me." "You kidnapped her," Morris said flatly. "You impersonated a cop. You chained a 14-year-old underground." Vincent smiled, just slightly. "She's smarter than all of you. She played the game. I respected that." And the bunker was excavated. Reporters filmed every angle. The plywood walls, the narrow cot, the jar of peanut butter still sitting open. Experts analyzed the structure. Sophisticated. Well hidden. He planned this for years. They found lists, drawings, maps. He had thought about doing this before. Elizabeth was not his first fantasy. She was just the first who lived to tell it. She met with FBI therapists. They asked questions in soft voices. "How many hours were you restrained? Did he hurt you? Did he ever touch you?" She answered with short, clipped sentences. Then silence. Because some things she didn't want to say out loud. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The town changed overnight. Some people treated her like a hero. Others, like a ghost. "Do you remember me?" an old classmate asked. "We were in 3rd grade together." Elizabeth nodded politely. But she didn't remember anyone anymore. Not really. The world felt different, like she had returned to the wrong timeline. Court, Vincent pled guilty to multiple charges: kidnapping, criminal sexual conduct, impersonating law enforcement, illegal weapons possession. He was sentenced to 421 years in prison. No chance of parole. Elizabeth didn't attend the sentencing. She was asked if she wanted to give a statement. She said, "He doesn't deserve my voice." But what haunted her most was not the crime. It was the memory of pretending, of laughing at his jokes, of smiling while terrified, of being smarter and hiding it. That performance saved her life. But it cost her something too. She no longer knew where the mask ended and where she began. The one night, 2 months after the rescue, she dreamed she was still in the bunker. Only this time she was the one locking the door. She woke up screaming. Her mother held her. "It's over," Madeline whispered. But Elizabeth wasn't sure that was true. Some part of the bunker had followed her out. At school, she was offered the chance to return. She declined. Too many stares, too many whispers. Instead, she began to write journals, letters, pages of thoughts she never shared. In one, she wrote, "People say I was brave. But I wasn't brave. I was quiet. I was calculating. I became what he needed me to be. I turned myself into a mirror and let him look into it. That's not bravery. That's survival." And the media eventually moved on. Another scandal, another missing child, another tragedy. But in Chesterfield, the forest still stood, and sometimes Elizabeth would walk to its edge. Just stand, listening. She didn't go in. Not yet. Maybe never. Part 4. The Rescue and Aftermath 10 years later. The forest hadn't changed. Tall pines, damp soil, that same scent of moss and memory. But Elizabeth had. She was 24 now, studying criminal psychology. Long hair, calm voice, eyes that had seen too much, but never looked away. A local documentary crew had invited her back to the edge of those woods. "We don't have to go in," the producer said gently. Elizabeth just nodded. "I think I need to." The walk was silent. She knew the turns, the slope of the hill, the bend near the creek. She knew where the bunker had been, even though it was long gone. The authorities had filled it in after the trial, planted grass over the top. But she felt it anyway, like a scar beneath the skin. She stopped, took a breath. "This is where I became two people," she said. In the years after the trial, Elizabeth had kept quiet. No big interviews, no book deals, no talk shows. She needed time. She needed space to figure out who she was when no one was watching. There were panic attacks, insomnia. A year where she couldn't leave the house without sunglasses, not from the sun, but from the stairs. She went to therapy, quit therapy, went back. She learned what triggers were, what trauma was, what survival guilt meant. Once she asked her therapist, "Why do I feel ashamed for living?" The therapist had no easy answer. Madeline stayed by her side through all of it. She never spoke about what those days had done to her, but once, Elizabeth found her crying in the kitchen at 3 a.m. "I just kept imagining you screaming for me," her mother whispered, "and I wasn't there." They held each other, said nothing. Some pain lives in silence. Her second year of college, Elizabeth gave her first talk. It was to a small classroom, all psychology majors. She told them about the importance of reading people, of trust, of intuition. Afterward, a student came up to her. "My sister went through something," he said. "Not like you, but bad." Elizabeth just looked him in the eyes. "She's still here?" "Yeah." "Then she's already winning." She began doing more talks, to survivor groups, to women's shelters, even to police departments. Her message was clear. We teach kids to be polite, to trust uniforms, to not make a scene, but sometimes making a scene is the only thing that saves you. And if you can't run, think. If you can't fight, listen. Use whatever you have. Your brain is a weapon. People listened, not because she was loud, but because she had lived it. In an interview for NPR, the host asked, "Do you forgive him?" Elizabeth didn't blink. "No." Silence. "Forgiveness," she said, "is not a requirement for healing." Vincent remained in prison. No appeals, no statements, just silence. Elizabeth never visited him, never planned to. But once during a college lecture, someone asked, "If you could say one thing to him, what would it be?" She paused, then said, "I'm not the girl you locked up. I'm the woman who outsmarted you, and I get to keep living while you rot in a box." On the day she graduated, she stood on stage and looked out at the crowd. Flashes went off. Her name echoed through the auditorium. She smiled, not because it was easy, but because she had done the hardest thing already. That night, she went home, sat by her window, opened an old notebook, the one she'd started during recovery. On the last page, she wrote, "I'm not broken. I was reshaped, and I'll never let darkness win again." She closed the book, looked at the stars, and whispered, "I'm still here."